Welcome again to episode 137. The gates slam open and the crowd erupts and chaos spills into the amphitheater of doom. What is he talking about? This is Legends of the Arena, a high-octane card combat team game from Toth Games that captures the over-the-top thrill of Super Smash Bros. And brings it to your tabletop. For 2 to 6 players, it's a whirlwind of combos, counters, and cunning plays where every card you draw could be your path to glory. Go for brute force knockouts. Outsmart your foes with tactical positioning. The question players must ask themselves when playing is, are you playing chess or poker? The strategic decisions are very real. Will you stack the right abilities to trigger a game-winning chain of powers? There is no single road to victory, only the one you carve in the heat of combat. Today, we'll dive into the mechanics, the madness, and most importantly, the story that make Legends of the Arena a knockout hit for competitive players and confusion lovers alike. So pay attention as we chat with the designer, Brian Toth, about his journey and the journey of this epic card game that was launched on Kickstarter last week. Brian, thank you for joining. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing great. I mean, after that intro, I'm doing fantastic. That's incredible.
Thank you. I'm getting compliments on those. I've been working hard to kind of punch up my intros. So yeah. So thank you for that. And it's so good to see you.
I almost feel like I need to put that in like a Kickstarter video or something. Man. Yeah, it's great to see you too, PJ.
Yeah, well, I'll certainly send this off to you so that you can use this video. But yeah, so we want to talk about your game, Legends of the Arena. But I guess I should state for the records, for those of you who don't know. Okay, so Brian reached out to me and he had listened to the podcast, heard about some designers on the show, and was like, we'd love to be a part of it. And I'm like, this is amazing because this is exactly what we want to do. So I am sorry that I missed getting to see your game at Gen Con. I know that you weren't there, but the game was. So tell us a little bit about, I guess let's start here. Tell me a little bit about yourself and what was the first game that got you into this hobby?
Oh man. Okay. So yeah, let's go way back. I think probably my name is Brian and my brother and I co-designed Legends Arena together. And we've been playing games together forever. We're both just grew up on, certainly chess and then into plenty of video games, back to board games, back to video games. I think the first game that really it might have really started with Magic the Gathering, which is not necessarily a hobby game, but kind of opened the doors to games with a higher level of art and higher production value and like kind of a whole culture and community around games, and especially like competing with games. And then I think, Catan certainly hit like a whirlwind in the early 2000s and just like totally changed how people were playing games. But even before then, there were a lot of pretty decent like game right games actually, and some kind of like a little bit off the beaten path US based games. One that comes to mind is Attack, which is like a pretty obscure title, but it's sort of like a Risk with a little bit more going on in terms of like the RPS battle mechanics and technology trees and such. And yeah, I think we're both really kind of fortunate to grow up in a time when there was this just like not only explosion tabletop, but this like kind of back and forth between like tabletop ideas going to video games and then like video games ideas coming to the tabletop. And like it didn't really feel like there was any kind of limit in terms of your imagination with what you could pull off. And I think the game that sort of really, the first one that we got into like really modifying and really like trying to change the rules and make our own thing out of was actually Star Wars Epic Duels, which is it was a mass market release in I want to say like the 2010 kind of time frame. And it was actually eventually re-implemented as Unmatched, which you might know today as like a fairly big title.
Yep, and I think everybody knows Unmatched, yeah.
But yeah, that was like, we played so much of that game, and it was designed for 1v1 duels. But when we got our friends together, we would usually want to play with more people. And so we spent a lot of time kind of modifying the rules to support team play, to be able to get up to like 8 people playing at once, because we can play a video game like, say, like a Dota or League of Legends or something, right? This kind of like asymmetric hero-based thing just felt like a natural fit, right? Everyone does their own abilities, everyone kind of works together as a team, and then we wanted to like port that back to the board game space. And so, yeah, it's a very long-winded, I guess, history there, but yeah, games have just always been a huge part of like how we spend time together and like spend time with our friends. And so,
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I mean, you're talking about two huge communities, Magic the Gathering, right? There isn't anything I can say about Magic the Gathering that hasn't already been said. It has its own community. Even, it's got a massive footprint at Gen Con, so that's pretty fantastic. And to be plugged into that, I can see that from what I've seen of the game on your website, on your Kickstarter, your videos. I can definitely see that influence for sure. And then the other community is Catan, which we recently learned about having, they celebrated their 30th anniversary this year. And just a few weeks ago, we had the CEO of Catan on, where we learned that it's pronounced Catan, although you can pronounce it any way you like. But that is how Klaus Teuber pronounced it. So I promised I would do better. It's Catan. But so that's great. So you were already plugged into two tabletop communities, very different communities, right? The Magic the Gathering community versus the Catan, the trading hex card game, board game experience, as it were. And they haven't always been, how should we say, friendly to one another.
yeah, I think I was like young enough to like not even really, that all went over my
Yeah.
head. They were just games. Like they're
Right.
games. I'm having fun playing with my family, playing with my friends. I think like, looking back on it, they actually came from pretty different places and like very different, like serving very different market segments, right? And like that, that's more clear now. But as a kid, you're just kind of you're like, yeah, this is cool. I like it. You don't have to even necessarily, yeah, which is maybe a useful thing for, not getting too caught on like existing paradigms.
Yeah. So would you say that perspective influenced how you approach your game design?
I think so, absolutely. So, we wanted to make sure that we had a board game experience. Like, I mean, I love Magic; it's a great game, but the TCG world, the like kind of the evolving meta and the sort of need to consistently stay on top it's a lifestyle business, and it's a lifestyle experience, and like that is it's I mean it's a ton of fun, but at the same time accessibility becomes an issue just for people who want to have a couple friends over who've never seen this before. You're all going
Absolutely.
to sit down and have a game night. Like that's the experience. That's where we really wanted to prioritize like most of the play, right? Like I think people can play competitively, and like we've tuned it for that a bit, but like first and foremost, it's got to be like, all right, everyone, you've never seen this before. I explain the rules to you in 15 minutes. We're going to play out of this one box, and we're all going to have fun with it. And so that was kind of the mindset.
So tell us a little bit. I mean, I only spoke just the bare minimum in my introduction about the game. So tell everyone about Legends of the Arena. What's the game? How does it play?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. So this is inspired by Super Smash Brothers, or just kind of, I guess, fighting games in general, video fighting games in general. And the core mechanic is you're picking out cards. You're doing a little programming, like 3 moves at a time. And they're kind of your basics, your punch, your shot, step back, block. And then every character has some of their own special stuff on top. You might be a barbarian, jump in there, spin your axe around. There's a character who manipulates time, can kind of move things backward and forward, just kind of the whole gamut of what you might imagine there. And so, and some of the classic archetypes are there. If you've played these games, like a grappler who's going to pull you in, or a zoner who's going to stay at distance. But even if you don't know those archetypes, they kind of correspond to other games. And so, yeah, you pick out your cards, you put them face down. Everyone does this at the same time. And then everyone turns over the top card that they've picked, and they resolve in order of speed, which kind of lets you sort of mostly play simultaneously. The decision-making strategy simultaneous. And then as you get hit, you take what we call fatigue. And as your fatigue builds up, you get easier to push. And that's kind of how the game ultimately ends, is by people getting knocked out. And so usually when you're playing multiple people, every time you get a knockout on someone else, you score a point, and the first person to a set number, usually like 2, 3, or 4, wins the game. And so every time you're knocked out, you just kind of come back in, just kind of keep rolling with the punches. and it's sort of a race to who can land the most knockouts first. So it's very much like arena combat brawling with a little bit of chaos in there and a fair bit of strategy, especially depending on how much you know your opponent and how much they know you, because there's a sort of a dialogue that evolves there. It's like, oh, I thought you were gonna do that, so I did this, but then you expected that, so you did this.
I love that. So you said that you could be knocked out, but you're not knocked out of the game.
Oh yeah, that was big for us. We really didn't want player elimination here because it's a game night, right? We want everyone to be in the game, and
Right.
so yeah, you get knocked out, you come back in, which is kind of actually fairly faithful to like a Smash Brothers experience, where you sort of just get to keep rolling with it. But that is ultimately how the game does end when one person scores enough.
So is it akin to, having not played a lot of video games in my youth, but a little bit, is it akin to like pressing the start button and just coming back in a video game?
With like another
Or
target.
do I draw a new character, a new legend, and I'm playing a new character?
Yeah, it's more like the same one just coming right back in. Yeah, so the same
Okay.
same character. Even because you've played those 3 cards, right? You could get knocked out on the first one. We actually have you drop right back in, just keep playing the cards you already set up. So it's very
Okay.
immediate and like hopefully just feels like a small speed bump because someone else is already advancing their victory condition. There's no need to like
Right.
put you even further behind.
Is there asymmetrical victory conditions per legend that you're playing, or?
Not exactly. So everyone is trying to race towards a number of knockouts. That being said, because they all have their own like style and their own kind of
Right.
moves, some of those can feel fairly asymmetrical. Like some of them really it's like one big hit and that's their whole play. They're trying to build that one big thing. Whereas other ones it's like
Okay.
tons of small hits. Other ones it's more about like timing or kind of lining up a combo in a certain order. So like although it's not different victory conditions, they play fairly differently to the point, some of the ones that are the more outlier ones can almost feel like they're doing their own thing because it looks so different from your baseline.
Right. So it plays 2 to 6 players, and there's team play.
Yeah, that's my favorite actually.
Yeah. How does that work?
Yeah, so the team play is usually 2v2 or 3v3, and
Okay.
you communicate with your team. You talk as much as you want, you share hands, you point at stuff. It's really about like kind of trying to set up your big combos together. I'm going to pull them in and then you punch them, or we're both going to jump behind them and turn around and surprise them, right? It's really
Right.
about that kind of sort of team brainstorming sort of experience. I think one thing we did that like has helped a lot is when one team is ready, they've set all their cards, they're all ready to go. There's actually a timer that can flip, and that gives the other team 1 minute to wrap up. So it's not like a real time game because if both teams want to think forever, that's fine. But as soon as one team's done thinking, the other team gets a minute left, and so that kind of gives some idea of the I guess the cadence or the pacing, right? Where it's like,
Oh, sure.
there's a little bit of goal there to race and kind of play from your gut and like make moves that feel right, more so than it is like analyze out and triangulate everything perfectly. Because honestly, even if you do that, the other team might just zig when you thought they were going to zag. So
Sure.
yeah.
So do they in the team play? Do you? I assume you share victory, and do you share? I'm thinking about, and I believe you mentioned it in perhaps your website. I'm thinking of Two-Headed Giant in Magic, where you share life. Is there that kind of component in Legends, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's actually exactly it. In fact, like Two-Headed Giant was a huge inspiration for us. Like I don't play so much Magic anymore, but my brother and I still try and get to all the pre-releases and like play that Two-Headed Giant together because it's just I don't know, it's just fun kind of getting to like talk with someone and like experience the same things. So yeah, your team shares like a knockout count basically, and so
Okay.
When your personal legend is knocked out, you come back in, but the team suffers a knockout, right? And when your whole team is run out, that's when you lose. So yeah, you win together, lose together.
Okay. That was a really important factor for both you and your brother in designing your game.
Yeah, because we wanted to support teams and high player counts, we want to make sure everyone's in the whole time, and you win or lose together, and then also you're incentivized to talk and coordinate and trying as much as possible to like not slide too much into that kind of you sometimes see the captaining thing like on certain table dynamics where one person's like you do this, you do that, you do that, right? And we really wanted it to make it as much as possible like people have their own characters and they are incentivized to make decisions in a reasonable time frame, right? So instead of having one person like sit there and kind of plan how everything's going to go, it's to your benefit to utilize everyone on your team and their own strengths and their all kind of like perspectives on the board.
So what was it like, or I guess I should say what is it like to design a game with your brother? That just seems to be rife with duels of its own.
It's been amazing. Like it's been like for our relationship, it's fantastic. We hang out so much more now, like every week. So we started working on this in 2017, like officially on this game. Obviously the roots go back earlier, but that's when we're like, we're going to make this game that we've wanted to make. And we had this really clear picture. It's like, it's going to be this dueling game. It's going to work for teams well. It's going to work for these higher player counts. And that's kind of all we knew for sure, right? We didn't have a background. I guess I had designed like one or two things before, but nothing published, nothing really finished. So this was we were like, we'll figure out how to do all that. But we know what we want to make. And so it's been great because every single week we always meet. And like, that's been 8 years now. And I mean, there's been some periods, right, where we made like no progress, but we'd still meet, we'd still hang out. And before that, we used to live like 4 minutes apart at one point, and we didn't see each other that often. And then once we started working on this together, every week, and even though we live much further apart, we have to like, do video calls a lot of the time, we still hang out. And so that's been awesome. Obviously it's not all upside, right? Like
sure,
differences of opinion, some things have to be one way or the other. And over the years, I think we've made, I would say like 5 versions of the game, right? And 4 of them we threw away. And each one of those was like tough because we got like attached to it. And usually one person would be more attached than the other. And it's like, how do we come to the agreement that this line, this whole system we've built is never going to work as well as we want,
Right. So that is my question. Did you resolve whenever you had big disagreements? I mean, minor ones, obviously, but how did you resolve any potential conflicts during the design process?
The hardest thing I would say the most useful thing in resolving the hardest questions has been external feedback. And I don't mean we set it up like, who do you like more? Like, this is my idea, this is his idea. No. It's like, as dispassionate as possible, right? You take it to conventions, we take it to playtesting events, we put it down on the table, and we just like watch people play and like take notes on their behavior. It's like, do they lean in? On the other hand, are they on their phone? When we tell them to talk to their allies and work with their teammates, are they actually doing it? When they work together, do they actually land those big combos? Like, are they having fun, right? Like the body language, because, we worked on this through the pandemic. There was a lot of remote stuff, really hard to get cues on whether people are having fun. At the end, they'll tell you, oh yeah, I had a good time. But like, they're being nice often, especially when it's your friends, right? But in person, you can just watch for the body cues. And that is kind of how we ultimately made those big decisions, right? It's like, look, like nobody's like, well, I shouldn't say no one, right? Because like, even with a game that's like kind of only okay, it will still have some great plays. You can always have some awesome plays, right? And so if we go to convention, we play 10 games and 2 of those games went really well, and the others were, maybe 2 went well, 2 went poorly, and then like 6 were just like, kind of just middling. That was ultimately how we like kind of, and it's not an easy way to make a decision, right? You kind of dedicate a whole day to this, and like, you've made this whole prototype and you've gotten really invested, but that is how we got through like the hardest decisions. Was like, yeah, we just have to be really honest about like how we see people experiencing this.
So those neurolinguistical cues are huge. Being someone who is in a medium where I do not get to physically and visually interact, most times with my guests and almost all the time with my listeners, it's challenging because you only have their words in text. So there's no tone, there's no...
It's
so
super hard.
I definitely can appreciate and identify with that. So how easy was it? Now, I know you and your brother have been working on this in 2017, like you said. And so it's 8 years, right? How easy was it for the two of you to be willing to be vulnerable with each other, to accept each other's feedback? And then the follow-up question is, take that a step further with playtesters and opening up your idea to hopefully constructive criticism.
That's a good question. I think it's something where like we keep getting better at it, even when we think we don't. We it's like, oh yeah, that was like a good breakthrough, right? We totally were like, we really leveled with each other there, and then it's like, that's just a start. I mean, even now, right? Like now that we're trying to get the game out there and stuff, it
Right.
is sometimes so scary to share the thing you've made, right? And it's we kind of have to push each other. It's like, hey, go post that designer diary, right? Like go get on the podcast, like things that get you outside your comfort zone, because it's like you're trying to be honest with the thing you made, right? You're trying to like, but yeah. So in terms of feedback to each other, right, and being more honest there, I think it's been very useful to talk about going back to the big goal, right? It's like, is this serving that big goal? We
Right.
had that goal, right? And then also just giving each other some space to kind of run with ideas that don't pan out. Like I spent years kind of doing a lot of basically simulations, to like to try and understand some of the difficult places people were getting to in the game. With like, we used to have a hex board, and there would be a lot of kind of ways the pieces could get lined up, and then you kind of got locked into something, and your play was very restricted. And I spent a lot of time analyzing that, and then it's like, yeah, why don't we just get rid of the hex board entirely? And I was like, but I think I understand it now. So it's been
Sure.
but sometimes you just need space to be like wrong for a while, and then like but yeah. And then with like playtesters, I think it's been really, I used to be so much more attached to obviously the feedback, and now it's like, it's the feedback's going to the game, it's not going to me. And like,
Right.
feedback is like a gift, right? It's like the best when a playtester is like, you know what, I didn't like that. That's like the second best. Sometimes it's like the best thing you could hear, right? Especially if it's early on.
Sure.
And if they are able to like tell you of not what they would fix necessarily, but like they're able to call out a couple things that
Yep.
they experienced and like how it made them feel. It's like, yeah, I felt like I
Right.
couldn't do anything there. Or I felt like I was doing the same thing every turn or whatever, just like little things like that can just, you have to hear them, you have to capture them. I do a lot of notes, but however you do it. And then just being able to like, yeah, that sometimes it just comes down to, it's like, yeah, if I hear it like 2 or 3 times, like it's probably real. It's not even that scientific. It's just like, yeah, if one person says it, oh, okay, maybe they had a bad game, whatever. But like, keep hearing that, you gotta like take it seriously.
Absolutely. Yeah. Did you find that getting feedback from playtesters, did you find having your brother as a partner in the design, did you find that to be helpful rather than a hurtful? I guess, yeah, hurtful and helpful.
So I think like the one thing that works super well, we're in different like spots now. We're about an hour apart. We go to different playtesting events, so sometimes just covering more ground, right? And especially not seeing the same playtesters all the time, that is super useful. And then also just logistically, when we go to the same event together, like we're taking breaks, we're tapping each other out. Like we don't always both need to be there. I mean, sometimes we are, and sometimes that's like helpful if it's sort of a logistically challenging convention, maybe with the seating or with the getting set up, passing out components and stuff. So it's really great to have a second person there. One thing I'm kind of surprised about is, I would say, like the games that we watch together, I think we almost always come away with very similar conclusions, which I think is helpful, because I think if we both like watch the same playthrough and then we both can't really agree what happened, that would make it a lot harder to come to some decision about what to do next.
Sure.
And I think we do put a lot of trust in each other, because like when we're doing like playtest separately, we'll come back with our notes like, hey, this thing isn't working, and I know it's also the thing you really liked, and I wasn't trying to like bias them or anything. I'm just reporting what happened. And I think we both been pretty open to like, yeah, okay, that's fair. I know I trust you a lot. I know you're not going to try to like tell them like, oh, what'd you think about that? That looked pretty bad there, didn't it?
Right.
You gotta trust each other.
So so it's my understanding, so you're in the Bay Area, right? And I'm assuming your brother's in the Bay Area too. I mean, an hour can be anywhere in California.
Yeah, he's over in the mountains, over in like Santa Cruz. Yeah.
Okay. So where did both of you play test your games? Was it pretty much in the Central California area, or how far out did you go to pool your play testers?
That's a good question. So like the first, the first couple of years is mostly local stuff around here.
Sure.
There's a fair number of conventions. sort of an interesting feature. I think almost every 3-day weekend here has a convention. They're all small, but they, I think the biggest one is KublaCon, and that tops out at like 5,000, 6,000 people. So not huge.
Okay. Yep.
But it's like competing that same weekend is Fanime, which is like a large pop culture con, which also has board game presence. So like just to give some idea of like how many choices you have of where to go. And then the first time we really took it on the road was actually Origins.
Okay.
That was a really interesting experience because like really different set of people over there. And we came back and made a lot of changes after that. Yeah, and since then we've obviously online you get people from all over, right?
Sure.
But yeah, most of our testing has been around here, a little bit in like LA, and also my brother went to PAX Unplugged and played some there as well.
Okay.
And so yeah, it's been mostly like big cons, right? Or the smaller cons around here.
Is there a community of playtesting events in the area? So an hour away from here in St. Louis, there's Proto Spiel, which is like just a 3-day weekend at a gaming store where it's all prototypes. Playtesters, I think it's like $5 for the weekend or $10. Obviously for designers, it's a little more, but is there things like that as well in your area? And if so, how helpful was that?
Oh yeah, I should shout out to Golden Gate Game Makers. If you're listening to this and you're anywhere near the Bay, look them up. It's fantastic. It's a pretty good group. So there's a development group called Brieger Creative, which is like a big force down here in the South Bay. They've worked on all sorts of stuff like cartographers or River Valley Glassworks. They've had a lot of titles come through, and so they've been really helpful in running these meetups. At this point now, I mean, I was just at one last night. There's at least one a week, often two, if you're willing to drive a bit. Some are, very well attended, maybe 30 people. Some are smaller, maybe 8 people.
Sure.
And then each of the cons has a Protospiel room as well, often run by the same Golden Gate Game Makers group. And so it's been essential, right? Like for the first year or so, we mostly were building our own thing, testing it, playing it. But the moment we took it to an event, we had just completely step change in our development, like light speed.
Right.
You might spend weeks and weeks trying to perfect some little card interaction, and then you go to one of these things, you're like, yep, back to square one. It doesn't turns out that thing didn't even matter, and there's so many big problems. So yeah, getting real people in front of it, and especially having some of them it's a mix, right? Some people are like in the industry and they can tell you right off the top of their head, like, yeah, this is gonna be expensive to make. You're not even thinking about that when you're designing a game, but they're like, yeah, consider a different component, right? Or they can tell you like, have you played this game, and these are titles that you've probably never heard of. I mean, some of these folks are playing like hundreds of games a year. So so that's great. But then you also get people who are just like, yeah, I like games and I want to play test. And that's also valuable because, you see how hard it is for someone to pick up a game if their only experience to gaming is like, oh, I played Sagrada twice and we played Exploding Kittens, and like, how can they make the jump over to your game and understand the rules?
Absolutely. My wife and I are both avid playtesters.
Oh, awesome.
We love to play test, which is cool because we're 2 for 1, right? So while we both look at game design differently when we're playtesting, we've playtested enough. And after we leave a playtest session, we have a lot of conversations about the games we playtested and just about the concept as a whole. And we both recognize the importance of constructive feedback. A lot of times we see playtesters who are just like, oh, that was fun, and I like the art. Okay. And I'm like, that doesn't help the designer at all. Let me tell you what I really think. So like I have a notebook specifically for playtesting. So it's funny when I walk up to a playtest table, pull out my notebook, got my pencil ready, and I'm ready to take notes because I don't want to forget what I'm thinking in the moment. And I don't want to interrupt your teach of the game, so I can tell you what I thought about this thing and how you can make it better or why it's great or whatever. And it's really helpful to synthesize my thoughts in such a way that makes it constructive to you as a designer. And I wish more playtesters would, think that through, because that's how games get better.
Hats off to you. That's incredible. I mean, as a designer, you appreciate any playtester, but that's on another level. That's something else. Yeah.
Well, as a fellow creative, I know the importance of feedback, and so we want to give you good feedback. So that is Golden Gate game makers.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so guys, if you're not listening to this podcast, you should. Brian should, after this recording, go and tell all of the people from Golden Gate Game Makers how great this podcast is, and maybe they'll start listening to them, particularly this episode, since we're talking about them so much. So yeah, how I had a question, then I lost it. Isn't that great? Yeah, that's how that goes. You gotta love that. So who went to Origins? Was it you or your brother?
We went together.
You
Yeah.
did?
Yeah.
So what was that like, right? It's the first time taking this thing on the road, and it's like, Origins is, it's a big deal. We've devoted several episodes to it this summer. So
It's really
what
fun.
was that like, that first sit down and bam?
It was something, because it was right after pandemic, and so like we
Okay.
were like just excited to get out and see people and like
Sure.
mingle and stuff. And so that was very exhilarating, and it was the two of us on our own, and I was away from the kids for a bit, so that was like, I had really not been away at that point. They were like, I think my oldest was 2, and so it was just fun. It would have been fun if nothing else happened, right? But I think I think one thing that's really cool about Origins, part of the reason we went there is because we had heard from other people, like it gets a really good level of industry presence and people who are
Yes.
like actually have a little bit of time to chat with you.
Mhm.
You go to a convention like Gen Con. I've not been to Gen Con yet. I want to go, but even like a PAX Unplugged, where it's like folks are busy, they're making sales, like they
Yeah.
don't have a lot of
Yeah.
time to take out of their schedule. And we had missed Gamma, and that was like kind of the other one we were considering, and we're like,
Mhm.
okay, well let's go to Origins then. And it was awesome because like people who were real industry pros, content creators, would just come to the protospiel room and just play your game, which
Yeah.
in comparison out here where we are in the Bay Area, there are many more designers than there are, I guess, industry professionals at these kind of events. Whereas like at Origins, I felt like the ratio was much more weighted towards like people would be coming around from like the op or something and come play your game, and like that's pretty cool. And they've got pretty good feedback to give. They've seen a lot of games,
Yeah.
and that really like I think also like having a period of time with nothing else to do but think about the game. Like we
Mhm.
would come home every night after the con, it'd be late, we would be like frantically changing these. We're like, okay, this isn't working, we gotta get this better. And there was one playtest, actually, I will always remember this playtest. One of the people who's playing like
Mhm.
was giving us feedback, and like there's some positives and some negatives, and the positive thing they brought up was this little kind of spin down dial thing we had that we just bought, like off the internet, to just kind of work as we weren't even thinking about putting in the game. It was just something that was to help you count. They're like, yeah, they really like this dial thing. And I mean, this was coming on top of a lot of other feedback, but that was kind of the point where we're like, yeah, I think we need to change a lot about this game, because the most positive thing is that we've got a nifty component, and that component's not the centerpiece, right? If your game is about a component and the component's the centerpiece of the game, you're doing perfect, right? But when it's just like an ancillary thing you happen to throw in there, it was like, all right, we gotta go back to the drawing board. So it was kind of bittersweet in a way, because we had tons of fun, met all these really great people, some of them who are still like I still chat with about the game. But we also came away with like, yeah, we have to like fix a lot about this game. So yeah.
But that's okay. As you just said earlier, you were willing to be vulnerable and take that feedback and make your game better. So kudos. How supportive did you find the network of fellow designers from Origins? And the follow-up question is, how supportive is the greater design community that you've experienced nationwide, worldwide, wherever you've been interacting?
I would extend that out beyond designers, like publishers, content creators, even manufacturers. Like really everyone's been super patient, I feel like, with us throughout this process, because like, man, when you're new, you have so many questions, and it's just like you just don't know. It's like, wait, how do I set up an email list? How do I make a prototype? What do you use to cut your paper out? I'm using scissors, it's taken forever. They're like, oh, get a slide cutter, like it's like, hey, should I like get a nice version of the prototype, or is paper okay? Like what's the etiquette, even if I'm showing up in front of playtesters? What am I supposed to put on the table? And just all these things you take for granted once you know all them, but when you're new. And so yeah, it's been like, for designers in particular, of course, like there's always slow times in those prototypical rooms, and the designers just get up and start playing other people's games. And it's just like, it's like you put your game away and you go play someone else's. And that's like a really nice thing to do, right? Because you're there to work on your game ideally, but ultimately I think most designers, in my experience, like myself at least, like you probably spend about half the time playing other people's games and half the time playing your game, roughly. I mean, sometimes there's tons of people in there who just want to play, but when it's
Right.
slow, and then some of those
Right.
folks you stay in touch with, like there's some folks who like hit us up. They're like, "Oh, we're actually doing some content creation now. Do you want us to feature your game in a little?" Like they're doing like a little kind of 1 minute videos. And I was like, "Thank you so much." Like I had no idea. Like we knew them as designers, and they're like, "Yeah," but they kept us in mind when they kind of like decide to expand out what they're working on. Or there's some local folks who've seen this game, a local publisher. You've seen this game, since 2017, right? Every few
Right.
months, and
Right.
when I needed to figure out how to like who to partner with for manufacturing, it's like, hey, how do I do this? Who do I talk to? Who's gonna like give me a like? Here's this quote. What does this line mean? What is fob intercoms? And like
Right.
it's been like, I think it has the feeling of I guess it is a small industry, but it has a feeling of an even smaller one. And yeah, that's been really helpful.
Yeah. I have heard that from other designers that no matter how big this hobby is, or small, depending on what side of the aisle you're on, it's definitely a close-knit, supportive group amongst designers. So I'm really encouraged to hear that and glad you had that experience. So let's talk about the art. Who's responsible for the art? I didn't mean for that question to sound so.
Oh no,
Who's responsible for that art? Like I asked it and I'm like, that sounded kind of mean. Yeah. So like who's the artist? What was the inspiration for the artwork? Yeah, because it's not whimsical, but it's not like Magic the Gathering's got that full, vibrant, very detailed art. It's not that either. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, it's great that you brought that. That was like the hardest part of kind of in terms of like my brother and I working together and like what we had to decide on. It's certainly not where like most of the time went, or like it wasn't like the most emotionally draining, right? But it was just we basically agreed that both of us had veto power on the art. It was something we both knew was like super important to us, and it was something that we really wanted to get right. And we had a lot of things in mind we didn't want to end up as. But that's not super useful, right? Because the beautiful thing about art is there's infinite possibilities, and just knowing that there's a couple you don't like doesn't really solve it for you. And neither of us have a background.
Absolutely.
Neither of us have a background in art, so we didn't even have like really the language to even describe, right? So that was very challenging. And mostly we just sat down together and we looked through ArtStation after Kara, DeviantArt. I think we probably went over at least 200 something profiles, right? Of just like,
sure,
I like this, I like where this is going. Like, is this, can we do more of this? Let's reach out, and like trying to even explain, even once we found an artist who we thought the style was like, trying to explain like what about their style we liked and show them a couple things that were like really helpful for us kind of to move it forward was taking art that was like not ours, right? But like kind of representative of the style, and then putting it on the cards and showing it to people in like a prototype form. Like, does this resonate with you? Does this kind of like you just did this move? Like, which one of these pictures kind of captures that? It's like, or not even asking people, just putting it on there and then just seeing how if they look, look past it, if they kind of like, if they're like surprised when, the rules don't match the picture, right? But yeah, so how we got to where we ended up was actually kind of Street Fighter was sort of the like specifically a Street Fighter 2. Yeah, Street Fighter 2 mostly like was the main inspiration there. And like, yeah, Street Fighter 2 Super Turbo, and kind of I think that blended with like a modern comic book style. So sort of like, it's got reasonably involved lines. There is some shading, but it's not like heavily rendered. And I think also some inspiration for like a League of Legends type thing, like, kind of like a MOBA look to it as well.
Right.
But yeah, we definitely wanted something that was a little bit playful, a little bit like fairly colorful, and a little bit conducive to kind of over the top action, right? Not too realistic, not too grounded, not too like fantasy necessarily, right? But still
Sure, yeah.
fantastic. So yeah, it was yeah. So Christian Erba is an artist down in LA who did some of the pieces for us. But one thing about the game is it's fairly art intensive, so he wasn't able to cover everything. And so we had a studio doing some like more pieces for us, kind of based on
Okay.
what he had started for us, And then yeah, it's been. I mean, we're really happy with how it landed, of course, and like I think it does mesh pretty well with people talk a lot about like theme and mechanics matching, but like art
Yep.
is kind of the third pillar of that, right? Your theme, mechanics,
Absolutely.
and art all need to stick together. And I've definitely experienced games where like they actually nail two, but not all three, right? And so that was
Mhm.
something that we really want to make sure we were able to pull together.
So what is it like? So you're designing a combat card game in an era that has there's a plethora of TCGs. You said you didn't want to produce a TCG for obvious reasons. One that Magic the Gathering has completely dominated, and rightfully so. And yet there are so many just card games. Like I've featured so many designers who are publishing combat card games right now. What um what is it, what is the feeling you get about doing that while everyone else is doing? Like, how do you punch through the noise,
Oh yeah,
right?
for sure. Yeah, because it's like part of it too is a lot of the games I play are not combat card games. I mean, obviously I play some of those too, right? But there's so many. I think one thing that's been amazing in the past like 7, 8, even 10 years now, really, is the explosion of like thematic games where they will
Mm-hmm.
take. It's not just like pasted on. They'll be like, we're going to do a game about birds or mushrooms or whatever, and they just like really nail it. And it's
Yeah.
really cool to like see designers exploring the space of like how mechanics can be purposed for not just surface level, right, but like very deeply, like food
Right.
trucks, whatever, right? And so combat is one of the ones I think it's always been relatively easy to make a
Mm-hmm.
game where your combat mechanics make sense as board game mechanics, right? Like there's a lot of good examples out there and there's a lot to draw on. So that side is kind of nice in that you have a lot of prior art to work from. I think for us, it was always about having that team and like multiplayer thing, because I think so many games really nail the 1v1, which makes a lot of sense. I think most people play these games 1v1, right? It's like
Right.
it's really easy to get two people together, and
Yeah.
it's really easy to run a tournament that way, right? And the void we kind of felt was that, well, how do you scale that up to game night? Like, do you always have to leave the combat, battling world when you sit down more than three people? And so
Mm-hmm.
that was what we really want to make sure, because like we have so many friends who either enjoyed these like 1v1 games a lot or they enjoyed the video game kind of equivalents, right? And then it's
Right.
like, yeah, okay, let's mix up a game night. There's that you can kind of get that feeling of like that sort of intense dual thinking, reading your opponent's mind, in a group setting. And I think that's kind of where we sort of really wanted to fall. And I think there's definitely it's a sort of thing where it's like we really want this thing to exist. So like if somebody had beat us to the punch,
Mm-hmm.
we just wanted to make the game, Like I think
Okay.
right, because it's like, yeah, if we already were playing this game, like we would have never felt the need for it. So I think that was
Right.
kind of what drove us there.
So I think that you had mentioned in previous emails between each other, in some of your notes that I thought were interesting and would be interesting to discuss at this moment. You were talking about the fine balance between chaos and control in the simultaneous revealing of cards. Talk about that mechanic of the simultaneous revealing and how you managed that balance.
Yeah, that is something right there, because I feel like you have to welcome in the chaos. As soon as you've got two people putting
Sure.
cards face down, you might say your game has no luck or something or no randomness, but you don't need to be rolling dice to have that experience. As long as you don't know
Right.
what your opponent's doing, there's some uncertainty there. And that is like
Mhm.
the thing that you sort of have to embrace a bit. And I think you can have a lot of fun, just like good old fashioned fun, with leaning into that. And I've certainly played a lot of games where it's like you feel like you have very little control over the outcome, but everyone's just kind of on this crazy ride. And so
Right.
where we wanted the game to fall was like maybe pulling that back a little bit, just because we did want to have in more of those kind of like dueling, knowing your opponent kind of feelings. And if you can make no predictions about your opponent, it's really hard to to read them, you know, to feel like you
Mm.
got the drop on them, right? If it feels purely chaotic. And so it does depend a lot, of course, on like the table and how well everyone knows each other and knows their characters and stuff. But for us, what we found is like you know, we put the 3 cards face down. We tried 2, we tried 1, we tried 4, we tried 5, right? And we tried all kinds of schemes where like certain
Sure.
numbers would be maybe face up in your discard, so your opponent could, you know, math out a little bit what you had left. We tried versions where people could. There were a lot of effects that would restrict what you could play in certain scenarios. I almost feel like we just sort of tried everything until we found something that felt good. We didn't have that like big intuitive leap that's like, it's 3. I mean, 3 was one of the first things we tried just because like it's a very manageable number and it turned out to
Yep.
be right. But we didn't know that until we kind of were like, okay, 3's good, but what about 4? It's like, no, that's not good. Like by the time we get that 4th card, no one has any idea what's going on. And it's a mess, right? But when you only play like 1 card, we tried a version
Yeah.
of that. It does feel very rock paper scissors, and that can be super fun. There's a lot of games that do that, but at that point we felt like it was a little bit too abstract. You know, it's like I do
Okay.
1 punch, and if you have your block up, you're fine. And if you tried to run away, maybe I get you first, right? And like it was just this very staccato kind of repetition of did you do it or not? And with the 3, we left a little bit of space there to be like, okay, maybe you got me on that first hit, but then I was prepared for maybe messing up on my first move, but then I had a contingency plan of stepping back and then shooting with my fireball. So it all kind of comes from the video game idea of like you've got your controller, you can queue up your inputs, right? You make some movements, but you don't really have time to know what the opponent's moves are when you're doing yours. And so to
Sure.
give that feel in the tabletop, we wanted to have kind of thread that needle between making just one choice and making like a whole series of things that could go off the rails. And by the time you're halfway through, you're already kind of holding your head because it's too far gone.
That's a fair point. That's fair. So it says that in the description, it talks about how you play a legend. Can you tell us about the characters that you play, these legends? Who are they? Where do they come from? Is there a lot of lore behind the game? Or yeah.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah. That's a great question. Yeah, we went fairly lore light. The basic world is one in which anybody who's really good at something is like maybe the very best in their field actually kind of gains some magical prowess from that. So, you know, we've got like the world's best opera singer, and it's not just that she's the best opera singer, like she can also use her voice to, you know, explode crystal glass, but on like a amazing scale, or she can use her stage powers to kind of disappear from the arena and appear somewhere else. And so we've got kind of people from characters from all sorts of different like areas, even like time periods a little bit, and sort of the arena in this world is kind of like, okay, if you've already achieved, you're the best at whatever you're doing, you've kind of gained these magical powers. There's the only like challenge left is other people from like totally different disciplines who also have these kind of powers, right? And so it's sort of like it's purely like a spectator sport, you know, kind of like maybe like a professional wrestling equivalent, right? Where like, you know, they're just kind of having fun, but they're expressing themselves through whatever they've mastered.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say to someone who plays your game and they're like, well, this is just like a video game. I can go ahead and play video game X. Why do I need this card game? What makes it stand out? What do you say to someone like that?
I mean, one, I would take that as a huge compliment, because like, if they say it's just like video game X, I mean, I feel like hitting video game notes in a board game is so hard. Just the pacing and the tempo and the timing and the engagement, like video games, they get a lot of that for free because they have so much control over the display and the graphics, the animation, the sound. It's a very immersive thing, you know? And if someone's like, your board game makes me feel like a video game, I feel like, yeah. But to address the second half of the question though, like, yeah, especially when we're playing, actually moving back a little bit, we're playing with like younger audiences, right? That's like one of my favorite play tests to watch is like when like a 13-year-old or 14-year-old is playing, because like they're kind of in that place where they maybe didn't set out, they haven't chosen like, oh, I'm a board gamer. They're just playing games, and they kind of all get stack ranked in their mind. Like, I like this game, I like that game, I like this game, and it's like when those people really engage with it, I love it. Like, it's like this is great, because it's like they're comparing this directly against Fortnite, or they're comparing this directly against Among Us, whatever, and like,
Right.
but yeah. So, but to answer the second half of the question, like, why wouldn't I just go play video game instead? I think a lot of that comes down to, I mean, for the older folks, it's reflexes, right? Like my fingers do not move that fast anymore. Like the level of like time and discipline it takes to be
Right.
good at a game like Super Smash Brothers or something, that's gotten away from me. So, for me, it's like, yeah, that, and then it's also about, different skill levels, right? Like having a bit of that leveling factor. It's like if somebody needs to take a long time to pick out their moves and stuff, easy to do in a tabletop game. And it's about the social aspect as well. Like you might sit down, play a game for an hour, but hang out for 2 hours,
Right.
Video game can also be social. I've done plenty of like couch co-op stuff, but it's a different like barrier to entry, and like you need to have a game console, controllers, TV,
Sure.
So really, I would say like mostly I'm super excited if people like feel like it hits the same notes, because it's like, yeah,
Good.
that's what I want to bring to the tabletop.
What's the recommended age group, like how young for this game?
Yeah, the box says 14 plus, and I think every 14-year-old we tested with it like had no problem whatsoever. I think in general, most people who have like kids that age who have like played video games at all, like immediately have a pretty good idea of what's going on. Certainly younger people have played it all the way down to like 10 or so, and it just depends on it. I don't want to say it's like a text heavy game, but relatively speaking, there are moves that require a couple sentences to describe, and there's like a bit of a like I think of it solidly like midweight game, in the sense of like there are lighter ways to do this kind of game, but then you lose out on some of the cinematics, some of the like wackier stuff, and we wanted to lean more into that. So I think generally speaking, it's
So for parents who have children that are preteen to early teen years, who are maybe playing a lot of video games, and they're looking for a analog shared experience with their kids at the table, your game seems to be compatible with that. Parents can play this with their kids, and the kids can pick up on it because they can reference it to what they already know. And so that seems to be encouraging of that family interaction.
Absolutely, but you have to be prepared to lose. Like your kids are going to beat you.
Sure.
I don't know how else to put. I don't know how else to tell you this. Like your kids are probably way better at this sort of game than you are, and that's
okay.
But as long as you're prepared for that, because we've tested with plenty of families and stuff, and I'm not saying I've got a stat, but I think the kids are beating the parents like, I don't know, 80% of the time. As long as you're okay with that.
Okay, there you go. All right. Well, that's all that I've got for you. Is there any other final thoughts, final ideas that you want to share?
Well, yeah, thank you so much for having me on. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
And it's been, I don't know, like I guess I would say to people who are like in the position of like, maybe you have some friends you play with, maybe it's your brother, sister, and you're like, we could make our own game. We could make something, this is better than this, or, we love what this is doing, but we want to take it further. You can totally do it. I would say, I would encourage you to try. Like the sooner you get in front of someone outside of your group, the better. Find that local group, find the Poderspiel, find the convention, get it out of your heads. But at the same time, it's like, it's not, I think, I forget who said this, so I won't attempt to quote them exactly, but the paraphrase is kind of the taste comes before your ability to like execute. Like you can tell something isn't quite right, or you can tell something isn't the way you want it to be before you're able to make the thing you want. And so like you spend a while being very frustrated by the thing you're making, because you're like, this isn't as good. Why isn't it good? And it's not because your taste is wrong. It's because you're learning how to like make that thing. And that's something I've definitely felt.
Sure, yeah.
But like, trust your taste, right? Because like that's the part that like is coming from all your experiences at that point and is like super valid. And then I guess to the other thing I want to say is, to people who are out there trying to like maybe playtesting games, looking at games at Poderspiels, or like wondering, sort of, wondering about maybe Legends Arena, or, whatever game you see, like, definitely come say hi. Like we've been talking a lot here about all the people who've helped us in the industry, and like, all the people we've connected with, and how sometimes those people like end up making their own relationships. Like definitely just come say hi and like chat. I think before I was a designer, I didn't really realize how like small the whole world was. And now it's like, yeah, it's like if there's a game I like and I see a designer, like I'm absolutely gonna go just like go say hi and stuff, because I know like yeah, it's the coolest thing when somebody wants to talk about your creation with you. So yeah.
Right? Absolutely. I get that. So the episode is going to drop at the time of recording. It hasn't launched, but you'll notice that I did mention last week is when it launched, because I believe that's correct. This episode drops on September 3rd. So tell everyone where they can find Legends of the Arena, where they can find you on all the socials. Yeah.
Oh yeah, thanks, PJ. That's right. Yeah, so launch date was August 26th. You can find us on Kickstarter. Look for Legends of the Arena, and we're at Toth Games on Instagram, Facebook, Discord. Yeah, we got a bunch of them, and so yeah, come drop us a line, say hi. Be happy to chat with you.
Yeah. And so, to be fair to all of my friends in New Orleans who are used to Toth being spelled with an H, this is Toth. This is Brian's family name. This is not named after the Egyptian god Toth, who is the messenger of the gods in Egyptian mythology. So, being that I'm from Louisiana, my Louisiana gaming friends will know that's where I went right away. I was like, oh, Toth Game. Oh, that's his last name. Oh, there's no H. Yeah.
That's a deep cut there. Yeah, yeah, but yeah, not
That is where my head went, and I know that some of my friends will go there as well. So clear up that. But yeah, you can definitely find them on Instagram. So guys, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, please. We're really close to our 1-year goal for subscribers, and we'll hit 100 subscribers. And then we're going to move on to year 2. Big things coming. Once again, Brian, thank you for joining me. This was a great conversation. I always love to hear the first time designer perspective, especially with everything that's been going on globally right now. So guys, be kind to each other, and let's continue to play more games.